What if I told you that there exists a medicine so powerful that the pharmaceutical industry cannot patent it? A cure so ancient that empires have tried to erase it from history. A secret so simple that it has been hidden in plain sight. From the Egyptian temples where pharaohs were mummified, to Tibetan monasteries where the air cuts like crystal, to Stanford laboratories where Nobel Prize-winning scientists confirm the impossible, there exists a forbidden truth that unites the mystic with the scientist: fasting. Not the trendy diets you know, not the restrictions they sell you, but the ancestral medicine that turns cancer cells to dust, regenerates neurons as if you were a teenager again, and cleans arteries better than any surgery. The pharaohs practiced it before consulting the oracles. Hippocrates prescribed it when every other remedy failed. Jesus fasted for 40 days before his mission. Modern scientists have discovered that it triggers autophagy, the cellular process that devours tumors from the inside. For centuries, this knowledge was buried. Why? Because a medicine that is free, that requires no laboratories or prescriptions available to anyone, threatens fortunes built on disease. Until now, because the time has come to reveal what has always been there. 12 voices from eternity will tell you the secret that can change your life forever. You don't need to believe, only to listen. Because when truth is real, it resonates in every cell of your body. Prepare yourself. What you are about to discover will change everything you thought you knew. Chapter 1: The Oath of Emptiness. The Secret Discoveries of Hippocrates. Did you know that the father of modern medicine deliberately concealed his most powerful discovery? That Hippocrates kept hidden a cure he considered too dangerous for the masses? In the lost archives of Alexandria, before the flames devoured centuries of knowledge, there were scrolls that never again saw the light. Manuscripts in which the physician of Kaz recorded observations that would forever change our understanding of healing. But they were deliberately omitted from the official compilations, considered too simple, too powerful. What we discover by tracing these lost sources challenges everything we thought we knew. The man who declared "let food be thy medicine" had uncovered something even more revolutionary. Sometimes the most powerful medicine was precisely to take no food at all. It all began in the year 420 BC. On the island of Kaz, a man came to Hippocrates swollen like a wineskin, his belly full of fluid that no remedy could drain. The physicians of Athens had already given him up for dead. His family had spent fortunes on potions with no result. What did Hippocrates do? Something his colleagues considered pure madness. He forbade all food for 7 full days, only pure water at dawn. His family cried that he was killing the man. Other doctors accused him of witchcraft. But on the 7th day, the impossible happened. The fluid had completely vanished. The body had found a way to heal itself that no herb, no ointment had ever achieved. Hippocrates had just discovered autophagy, 2,400 years before science would give it that name. That night, gazing at the stars from Kaz, he had a revelation that left him trembling. Nature itself had been his teacher. Wounded animals hide and fast until they heal. Only man, in his arrogance, believes he must eat when he is sick. His observations went far beyond this case. For years he recorded situations that defied all medical logic. Epileptics with fewer seizures during fasting, women with mysterious fevers who recovered faster when empty, men with infected wounds that healed when their stomachs rested. Why did these discoveries never reach the official texts? Because he had uncovered something that threatened medical authority itself, that the human body has inner physicians wiser than any external doctor. The technique he developed was preserved in fragments we can now reconstruct. He called it the fast of dawn. Upon waking, before the sun touched the horizon, drink only pure water. Maintain this abstinence until the sun reached its zenith. During those hours, the body entered a state of internal cleansing. What did he observe? The mind became crystalline, like a polished mirror. Energy transformed into something purer. His patients reported clearer visions, sharp intuitions, a natural connection with inner wisdom. Modern neuroscientists confirm that during fasting, the brain produces BDNF, a protein that makes new neurons grow. Hippocrates had discovered neurogenesis without knowing the word. But as a responsible physician, he also recorded warnings. He observed tragedies in those who ignored limits: pregnant women, children, fragile elders, and those dependent on vital medicines needed other paths to health. His final notes reveal something extraordinary. At every new moon, he would naturally fast. In those days, he wrote of clearer visions, steadier hands, a restless soul, moments when true healings were born. A final confession appears in these texts. He had discovered that fasting not only cured the body, but transformed consciousness into emptiness. By emptying the stomach, the spirit was filled. Modern science confirms every one of Hippocrates' observations. His internal cleansing is cellular autophagy. His inner fire is optimized ketosis. His clear visions reflect enhanced neurogenesis. The secret legacy hidden for 2,500 years can be summed up in a single revelation. Let food be thy medicine, yes, but let abstinence be thy deepest healing. Sometimes the most powerful medicine flows from within, when we stop obstructing its natural causes. The oath of emptiness remains. In the silence of the stomach, the body's wisdom awakens. In conscious abstinence, the inner pharmacy that was always there is revealed. The secret of Hippocrates emerges when we need it most. The medicine of the future is the oldest in the world. Chapter 2, When the Inner Fire Awakens. Ayurveda and the Power of Agni. What would you do if you discovered that inside your stomach burns a fire capable of consuming any disease? That the ancient physicians of India knew a secret about this fire that modern medicine is only beginning to understand. In the palm leaf manuscripts kept in the most remote Himalayan temples where the air is so pure it cuts like crystal, there are texts that would revolutionize Western medicine if their secrets were fully revealed. The texts of Charaka and Sushruta, written 1,000 years before Rome was an empire, contain the knowledge of Lupabasa, the sacred fast that awakens Agni, the inner digestive fire capable of transforming the body into a perfect healing machine. But what modern researchers have discovered by translating these hidden texts challenges everything we thought we knew about digestion and metabolism. More than 3,000 years ago, in the sacred valleys where the rishis meditated until their breath became wisdom, a physician named Charaka made an observation that would change medicine forever. He noticed that when people fasted following specific protocols, they didn't just lose weight. Something far more extraordinary occurred. Diseases that had resisted every known treatment simply disappeared. His revolutionary conclusion was inscribed in Sanskrit. Within the human being exists a metabolic fire so powerful that when freed from the constant task of digestion, it can direct all its energy toward burning toxins, repairing damaged tissues, and restoring perfect health in ways that seemed miraculous. This fire has a name, Agni. And here comes the astonishing part. Modern science has confirmed, word for word, the Ayurvedic texts. What they called Agni, we know as accelerated metabolism. Its burning of toxins is what we now call autophagy. Its inner purification corresponds exactly to the cellular regeneration Nobel Prize-winning scientists study in Stanford laboratories. The secret text reveals something that would completely transform your understanding of fasting. Not all fasts are the same. There is a specific way of awakening Agni that not only cleans the body but completely reprograms your digestive system to function like a perfect power plant. The exact technique transmitted by Ayurvedic physicians for millennia was called the awakening of the digestive fire, and every step had a precise scientific purpose. Preparation phase. For 3 days, consume only foods that ignite Agni: fresh ginger at dawn, hot spices like black pepper and cinnamon, easily digestible foods such as basmati rice and cooked vegetables. This prepares your inner fire for the intense work ahead. The day of fasting. Wake before dawn and drink warm water with Himalayan pink salt and drops of lemon. This does not break the fast. It activates your Agni like bellows fanning flames. During the hours of fasting, every sensation of hunger is your Agni awakening, searching for something to burn. Accumulated fat, stored toxins, chronic inflammation. Breaking the fast at sunset, with warm milk boiled with turmeric and ginger. The texts specify it must be warm like a mother's embrace, the exact temperature that optimizes nutrient absorption after fasting. The manuscripts reveal something science is only now confirming. This protocol doesn't just burn fat, it activates what they called the cellular memory of youth. Cells literally remember how to function as they did when you were young. But here comes the deepest knowledge. The texts speak of 3 types of digestive fire that determine your overall health. Weak Agni produces chronic illnesses and constant fatigue, like a damp fire that barely burns and fills everything with toxic smoke. Irregular Agni causes digestive problems, anxiety and mood swings, like a fire that flares and dies unpredictably, creating internal chaos. Perfect Agni is like a fire of dry wood that burns clean, steady, and powerful, consuming everything it touches without leaving toxic residue. How to identify your type? Simple. If you wake up tired even after 8 hours of sleep, your Agni is weak. If your hunger appears and disappears with no pattern, your Agni is irregular. If you feel real hunger at regular hours, constant energy, a clear mind, and a light body, Karmadri, your Agni is strong. The secret texts reveal that each type requires a different fast. Weak Agni, gentle 12-hour fasts with spiced warm water, like patiently kindling a damp fire. Irregular Agni, run 16-hour fasts at fixed times, like training a wild flame to burn with discipline. Strong Agni, occasional 24-hour fasts, allowing a perfect fire to show its full strength. But the texts also warned, the fire that heals can also burn. Pregnant women, children, fragile elders, and those with serious illnesses should not awaken this fire without expert guidance. Do you know what is most extraordinary? When your Agni works perfectly, you don't just digest food, you digest experiences, emotions, thoughts. Everything is transformed into pure energy instead of accumulating as toxic residue. The ancient rishis said, when the inner fire burns perfectly, the human being becomes the alchemist of his own existence. This is the gift of Ayurveda. After 5,000 years, you are not the victim of your metabolism, you are the master of your inner fire. And that fire awakened correctly can burn any disease and transform your body into the temple of health it was always meant to be. Chapter 3, Under the Breath of the Dragon, Taoist Bigu and the Absorption of Qi. Did you know that in the sacred mountains of China there exists a practice so powerful it allows a person to live more than 200 years, absorbing energy directly from the cosmos? That Taoist masters developed a form of fasting that completely transcends the known laws of nutrition. In the secret archives of the Wudong Monastery, where clouds embrace millenary peaks and the wind whispers formulas of immortality, there are scrolls that document the impossible, records of masters who went for years without consuming solid food, nourishing themselves only on what they called the breath of the celestial dragon, and not only surviving but radiating vitality that defied every medical explanation. The texts speak of Bigu, the abstinence from grains, which allows humans to recover their lost ability to feed directly on universal energy. What modern researchers have discovered while studying these ancient documents would forever change our understanding of the limits of the human body. In the year 300 AD, an alchemist monk named Zhuhong recorded something extraordinary in his writings. For decades, he had observed masters who lived for months, even years, without eating solid grains, subsisting only on what they described as the qi of dawn and the essence of lunar stones. Their bodies did not deteriorate. On the contrary, they developed abilities that seemed supernatural. His revolutionary discovery was written in characters that few have ever deciphered. The human body possesses a dormant ability to nourish itself directly from the energy that permeates the universe. But this ancestral capacity only awakens when we completely free the digestive system from processing dense matter. What the Taoists called absorbing celestial qi, modern science now recognizes as extreme optimization of cellular respiration and accelerated mitochondrial regeneration. The Taoist masters discovered 3 progressive levels of Bigu, each deeper and more transformative. Initial Bigu, purification of the earthly dragon, 7 days. Total elimination of grains, Only fruits that grow toward the sky, vegetables kissed by the sun, and spring water. This level cleanses what they called the mud of the stomach, the heavy toxins that keep the spirit trapped in physical density. Intermediate Bhiga, awakening of the celestial dragon, 21 days. Only pure liquids, broth simmered for 24 hours, herbal teas gathered at dawn, water energized with crystals under the full moon. The body begins to remember its original etheric nature. Supreme Vigor, union with the cosmic dragon, reached only by advanced masters. No solid food, no liquids, only air, only chi, only conscious breathing that connects directly to the universal source of energy. The scrolls reveal the exact technique Lao Tzu secretly taught, called feeding on the breath of the dragon. Preparation, the 7 days of awakening. Each morning before the first ray of sunlight, sit facing east. Inhale deeply, visualizing pure golden light. Hold the breath to the count of 7 while this light fills every cell. Exhale slowly, expelling all accumulated darkness. Repeat 49 times. During these days, eat only foods that grow upward, tree fruits, green sprouts, leaves that seek the sun. The Chi Fast. When the body learns to nourish itself with light, true vigor begins. At dawn, instead of breakfast, practice the breath of the celestial dragon. Stand barefoot on natural earth, arms raised like branches. Inhale, imagining golden essence of the sun entering through the crown and descending into the abdomen. Hold while visualizing this energy turning into liquid nourishment. Exhale, releasing weakness. At midday, when yang reaches its maximum power, practice eating light, seated in lotus, eyes closed, facing the sun. Feel the rays penetrate the skin and turn into liquid food inside the stomach. The texts state that during true Bhigu, something deeper than survival takes place. The cells learn to draw energy directly from the quantum field that surrounds all life. Records speak of practitioners who could walk on snow without leaving footprints, remain underwater indefinitely, because they had learned to absorb oxygen from universal energy itself. After 7 days of properly practiced Bhigu, the documented effects include a mind as crystalline as mountain water, sharpened intuition to the point of direct perception, and constant energy independent of external food. But the texts also warned, Bhigu is like taming a cosmic dragon. Without proper preparation, it can destroy. Pregnant women, children, weak elders, and the gravely ill should never awaken these forces without a true master. The Taoist discovered that it was not only what you eat that matters, but also when and how you receive it. During Bhigu, every breath becomes sacrament. Every drop of dew turns into an elixir of immortality. The deepest secret was this: Bhigu is not a diet, it is a return to our original nature. Before we became dependent on dense foods, we were beings nourished directly by light, by Chi, the pure essence of the cosmos. The immortal masters used to say, when man learns to feed on the breath of the dragon, he regains his citizenship in heaven. This is the promise of Bhigu after 4,000 years, not just physical purification, but the complete transformation of the being. The celestial dragon awaits. You only need to learn to breathe with it. Chapter 4. The Canon and the Measure. Avicenna and the Islamic Medicine of Fasting. Did you know that the most influential physician in history, whose canon of medicine was taught in European universities for 600 years, hid his most revolutionary discoveries about fasting? Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, developed fasting protocols so precise they could cure diseases considered incurable in his time. In the great libraries of Baghdad, before the Mongol invasions reduced centuries of knowledge to ashes, there existed Arabic manuscripts documenting extraordinary medical cases, scrolls where the prince of physicians recorded observations that would revolutionize our understanding of therapeutic fasting. What researchers have discovered by translating these lost texts challenges everything we thought we knew about medieval Islamic medicine. They reveal that Avicenna had developed 1,000 years before modern science fasting protocols of astonishing precision. It began in the year 1020, at the court of the Emir of Hamadan, when an impossible case reached Avicenna. A Persian noble suffered from what the physicians of the time called the black fire of the liver, a disease that consumed the body from within, unstoppable by any known remedy. The best doctors of Constantinople and Cairo had already abandoned him as hopeless. But Avicenna, after carefully studying the patient for days, made a decision that scandalized his colleagues. Instead of prescribing the complex mixtures of herbs and minerals that characterized medicine of the era, he ordered something apparently simple: a 21-day fast on pure water, interrupted only by specific periods of controlled refeeding. The result: in 3 weeks, the black fire had completely vanished. The liver had found a way to regenerate that no potion had ever achieved. Avicenna had rediscovered what modern science calls fasting-induced liver regeneration, nearly 1,000 years before the term existed. But this was no isolated case. Manuscripts reveal that Avicenna spent decades developing what he called al-siyam al-tibbi, medical fasting, a complete system of therapeutic protocols based on controlled abstinence, supervised by a physician. His genius lay in discovering that not all fasts work for all diseases. Each condition required a specific protocol, precise durations, permitted liquids, and carefully calculated refeeding patterns. The texts describe 5 principal categories of his system. Fasting of the inner fire, for liver and gallbladder diseases. Protocols of 14-21 days with water and specific infusions of bitter herbs that stimulated what he called the awakening of the purifying organ. Fasting of the thick air, for respiratory and chest diseases. Periods of 7-10 days combined with inhalations of medicinal vapors and specific breathing exercises to expel sticky humors from the lungs. Fasting of the clouded blood, for skin and joint diseases. Alternating cycles of 3 days fasting and 2 days tightly controlled feeding, repeated for weeks, until he achieved what he described as clarification of the blood. Fasting of the clouded brain, for mental and nervous conditions. Fasts of 5-7 days with specific supplements, what we now know were precursors to neurotransmitters, achieving what he called the clearing of mental clouds. Fasting of the rebellious stomach, for chronic digestive disorders. Progressively longer fasts, beginning at 12 hours and extending to 72 hours, allowing what he described as the rest and regeneration of the digestive organ. What is extraordinary is the precision with which Avicenna documented every protocol. He specified not only duration but also the exact water temperature, the herbs to add, the precise ingestion times, even the body positions that optimize therapeutic effects. The manuscripts reveal he developed what he called al-mizan al-tib, the medical balance, a system to determine the exact dose of fasting each patient required depending on constitution, age, season, and severity of illness. His formula, written in classical Arabic, can be translated like this: just as the goldsmith knows the exact measure of fire needed to purify each metal, so must the wise physician know the exact measure of emptiness required to purify each body. The cases documented in his private texts included cures that seemed miraculous, epileptics who stopped convulsing after specific fasts, diabetics who regained control of their sugar, people with tumors who saw their masses disappear after precise abstinence protocols. How did Avicenna explain these extraordinary results? His revolutionary theory proposed that the human body possesses what he called al-tabib al-dakhil, the inner physician, a healing wisdom activated only when the digestive system is given complete rest. Modern science has confirmed every one of Avicenna's observations with astonishing precision. His inner physician corresponds to autophagy and cellular regeneration. His purified humors reflect metabolic optimization. His organ awakening matches what we now call tissue regeneration during fasting. But Avicenna was also meticulous in recording contraindications. His texts contain detailed warnings of who should never undergo these protocols: pregnant women, children under 16, frail elders, and patients with certain grave diseases requiring constant nutrition. One of his most quoted phrases in the secret manuscript says, "Fasting is like the sword of the most skilled surgeon. In expert hands it can save any life. In ignorant hands it can destroy even the strongest." The texts also reveal that Avicenna developed fasting variations for different temperaments, following the medical theory of his era. Sanguines required short but frequent fasts. The melancholics needed long fasts with specific herbs. Cholerics benefited from fasts with cold water. Phlegmatics required fasts combined with therapeutic heat. Avicenna's hidden legacy can be summed up in a revelation that changed medicine forever. Fasting is not the absence of treatment. It is the most sophisticated treatment of all. It requires the same scientific precision as any medicine, yet holds the power to activate the most potent inner pharmacy that exists. This knowledge, preserved in the most secret corners of medieval Islamic medicine, emerges now as modern science confirms every word of the Prince of Physicians. Chapter 5: The Fast of the Spirit, Jesus, Moses, Elijah. Did you know that the greatest prophets in history prepared for their missions not through weapons, wealth, or knowledge, but through fasting? That Jesus, Moses, and Elijah all practiced the same ritual of emptiness to receive revelations that changed humanity? In the sacred scriptures, if you read carefully, a pattern emerges. Every time a great mission was about to begin, there was fasting. Not as punishment, not as sacrifice, but as a gateway to divine communion. Moses climbed Mount Sinai, and before receiving the 10 Commandments, he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. In the silence of hunger, he heard the voice of the Eternal that gave him the law for an entire people. Elijah, the prophet of fire, fasted during his journey into the desert. It was in that emptiness that he felt the gentle whisper, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the silence that revealed God's presence. Jesus, before beginning his public mission, withdrew to the desert. For 40 days and 40 nights he fasted, confronting temptations and visions. Only then did he return clothed in power, proclaiming a message that would transform the world. The hidden meaning of these texts is astonishing. The prophets did not fast to weaken themselves, but to be strengthened. They believed the absence of food removed the veil between human and divine. The Desert Fathers, centuries later, would imitate them. They believed that when the stomach was empty, the spirit was full. The hunger of the body became the bread of the soul. Modern neuroscience confirms something these prophets already knew. During prolonged fasting, the brain produces higher levels of DMT endogenously, the molecule of mystical visions. This could explain why Moses saw fire in the burning bush, why Elijah perceived the whisper in the silence, and why Jesus had visions of angels. Fasting was the sacred technology of the spirit. The prophets didn't need temples of gold or great armies. They needed emptiness, because in that emptiness, eternity spoke. But the scriptures also carry warnings. The fast of 40 days was not for everyone. It required divine call, physical preparation, and spiritual guidance. Forcing it could bring death. That is why the prophets always emphasized obedience and humility. They did not fast to manipulate God, but to become instruments, not to gain power, but to surrender. Today, mystics across the world still replicate these practices. In monasteries in the Judean desert, monks continue to fast in caves, seeking the same clarity of spirit. In the Himalayas, yogis remain without food for weeks, meditating in silence. Science calls it ketosis, autophagy, neurogenesis. The mystics call it illumination. Two languages for the same truth. The body, when emptied, becomes the perfect temple for the divine. The fast of the spirit remains. In the emptiness of the stomach, the heavens open. In hunger, the soul hears what the noise of the world conceals. Chapter 6: The Water that Washes the Shadow. Rituals of Aquatic Purification. Did you know that in nearly every ancient civilization, water and fasting were combined as a single path of purification? That sacred rivers, lakes, and springs were not only places of worship but also laboratories of ancestral medicine. From the Nile to the Ganges, from the Jordan to the cenotes of the Maya, water has always been the ally of fasting, not just to quench thirst, but as a spiritual element capable of erasing the shadows of the soul. In Egypt, priests of the Temple of Isis practiced what they called the Great Immersion. For 3 days they abstained from food, drinking only water from the Nile at dawn, convinced that the river carried divine codes. When they emerged, they described visions of Osiris and Isis, granting them wisdom and healing powers. In India, yogis performed Autophagy, a fast maintained only with water gathered at sacred times, such as before sunrise or during eclipses. They believed that water exposed to the sky absorbed cosmic energies, turning each sip into a spiritual elixir. Among the Hebrews, purification in the waters of the Jordan was always preceded by fasting. John the Baptist combined both in a ritual that prepared the people for the coming of the Messiah, first the emptiness of the stomach, then immersion in the water that symbolized rebirth. The Maya, in their sacred cenotes, performed ceremonies where they fasted for days and then descended into underground waters. They described hearing the voices of ancestors and the echoes of the caves, visions that guided their decisions for entire tribes. Modern science is beginning to understand what the ancients intuited. Fasting activates cellular autophagy. Water facilitates the elimination of toxins through kidneys and skin. Together they form a perfect cleansing system, both physical and mental. But there is something more. Neuroscientists have observed that immersion in cold water after fasting produces a surge of endorphins and dopamine, creating states of ecstasy that mystics interpreted as divine visions. The secret texts reveal that these rituals were not only for the body but for the soul. Water symbolized the primordial chaos, and fasting, the return to the origin. By uniting them, man was reborn. But the masters warned, the ritual of water must always be done with respect. Without preparation, prolonged fasting followed by sudden immersion could cause fainting or even death. That is why initiation always required a guide. Today, modern practices like hydrotherapy, cold immersion, and therapeutic fasting unconsciously replicate what the ancients already knew, that water and emptiness together reset the body and awaken the spirit. When you fast and drink only water or immerse yourself in it after days of abstinence, you are not performing something new, you are participating in the most ancient ritual of humanity. The water that washes the shadow remains, every drop purifies, every fast empties, and together they open the door to rebirth. Chapter 7. The Cosmic Diet of the Pharaohs. Egypt's Secrets of Longevity. Did you know that the pharaohs of ancient Egypt followed secret dietary and fasting practices that allowed them to maintain vitality and lucidity long into old age? That in the temples along the Nile, food was considered not only nourishment but a ritual capable of connecting man with eternity? The papyri discovered in Edfu and Luxor reveal astonishing details. The high priests prescribed periods of fasting, combined with sacred foods prepared in specific ways to prolong life and purify the soul. These protocols were not for everyone, only for the initiated, kings, and those preparing to enter the afterlife. The text describes something extraordinary. Before consulting the oracles, before entering sacred chambers, before performing rites with the gods, the priests fasted. They believed that only an empty body could receive the divine word without distortion. Pharaohs preparing for great decisions also fasted. During those days, they consumed only a sacred drink made of honey, date wine, and diluted herbs, a liquid considered a bridge between earth and the stars. The Book of the Dead mentions this directly. The stomach must be empty and the soul full of light. Modern researchers studying mummies have found something that confirms these texts. Many pharaohs had arteries significantly cleaner than those of people of lower classes. Why? Because they alternated feasts with strict fasts supervised by priests. Their bodies periodically purified themselves. The pyramids themselves were aligned with cosmic cycles. Initiates fasted during solstices and equinoxes, believing that fasting opened a channel to stellar energy. They described it as the cosmic diet, a way of feeding on starlight through emptiness. But there was also a darker side. Some texts speak of abuses, where unprepared apprentices fasted excessively and died during rituals. That is why access to these secrets was restricted. The priests always warned, fasting is a sacred fire, and only those prepared may enter it. Modern science reveals what the Egyptians intuited. Fasting reduces arterial plaque, increases cellular regeneration, and activates the brain's pineal gland associated with mystical visions. That could explain why initiates reported seeing gods and stars with their eyes closed. Today we understand it as endogenous DMT and neuronal activation. For them it was communion with Ra and Osiris. The cosmic diet of the pharaohs remains, a combination of emptiness and light, fasting and sacred food, body and eternity. They knew that true immortality was not only in tombs of stone, but in the body transformed by sacred fasting. Chapter 8, The Great Silence. Desert monks and mystics of the void. Did you know that the greatest mystics in history discovered their deepest revelations not in abundance, but in emptiness? That in the burning deserts of Egypt, in the caves of Syria, and in the monasteries of Judea, monks practiced an extreme fast they called the Great Silence. The Desert Fathers, founders of Christian monasticism, taught that to hear the voice of God, one must first silence the voices of the body. They abandoned banquets, daily bread, and sometimes even water, immersing themselves in a silence so deep that their minds seemed to dissolve into infinity. Saint Anthony, considered the father of hermits, fasted for weeks in the caves of Thebes. Texts tell us he was tormented by visions and inner demons, but after the 40th day, his face shone with a supernatural light. Pilgrims came from afar to see him and touched his hands, claiming they healed the sick. Syrian monks, known as stylites, pushed this practice further. They lived for years on stone columns, exposed to sun and wind, consuming only a few drops of water and a morsel of bread each week. This extreme emptiness, they said, placed them in a state of divine clairvoyance, where hidden truths were revealed. Coptic manuscripts found at Nag Hammadi confirm this tradition. They describe that when the stomach is empty, the heart is full of light. Mystics believed that the soul, freed from the weight of digestion, rose to spheres of consciousness where prophetic visions unfolded. Modern science is beginning to understand what these monks intuited. During prolonged fasting, the brain increases production of serotonin and dopamine, promoting states of peace and mental clarity. The pineal gland, associated with the third eye, produces more melatonin and endogenous DMT, which could explain the luminous visions reported by ascetics. But the Great Silence was not just a health practice. For them, it was a spiritual doorway. They believed that physical emptiness allowed union with the divine, a communion impossible, while the body remained enslaved by desire. Ancient manuscripts also mention the dangers. Young men without preparation risked madness. The sick could die from excessive asceticism. Masters reminded that the Great Silence had to be guided, never imposed abruptly. Today, transpersonal psychology rediscovers the same mechanisms. Extreme fasting triggers altered states of consciousness. Sensory and food silence frees the brain from habitual patterns. The mind enters what neuroscientists call the unity state. The desert monks had discovered more than 1,500 years ago that emptiness was not death but birth. In the absence of food, they found the presence of God. In the silence of the body, they heard the voice of eternity. The Great Silence remains, a radical practice where man strips himself of everything to become transparent to the light. Chapter 9, The Alchemists of Time, Fasting and Modern Longevity. What if I told you that the secret to living longer is not hidden in pills, but in time itself? That ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science converge on one truth: when you eat matters as much as what you eat. In California, Dr. Sachin Panda discovered something extraordinary while studying fruit flies. Those that ate within strict time windows lived 30% longer than those that ate constantly, even when consuming the same amount of food. Other laboratories confirmed it with mice. Animals fed only during 8-hour windows resisted diseases, kept young hearts, and showed cells that seemed to defy aging. The secret lies in circadian rhythms. Every cell in your body carries an internal clock, dictating when it should repair itself, when it should grow, and when it should rest. For millennia, these clocks worked in harmony with nature, light and darkness, day and night, feast and famine. Modern society has broken this rhythm with constant snacking, artificial light, and meals at all hours. The result: diabetes, obesity, inflammation, and accelerated aging. Dr. Walter Longo from the University of Southern California revealed that fasting activates ancestral genes dormant for decades. Like a key opening sealed doors, fasting awakens hidden repair programs in your DNA. The cascade of benefits is astonishing. Insulin drops to pure baseline levels. Cells burn old fat stores untouched for years. The brain produces BDNF, the protein that makes new neurons grow. Longevity genes are switched on, while aging and inflammation genes are silenced. Dr. Jason Fung in Toronto went further. He documented patients with type 2 diabetes who reversed their condition after years of dependence on medications. Their bodies remembered how to process sugar again, as if the river of health had returned to its natural course. The most effective and practical protocol is known as 16-8 intermittent fasting. Here's how it works. Last meal, 8 p.m. No breakfast the next morning. First meal, noon the following day. During the 16 hours of fasting, only water, unsweetened tea, or black coffee. This respects circadian rhythms, and after a week of adaptation, most people stop feeling morning hunger. Instead, they report sharper focus, more stable energy, and greater vitality. But like every powerful medicine, fasting must be approached with wisdom. Pregnant or breastfeeding women, people with eating disorders, type 1 diabetics, or those on strict medication regimens should only attempt fasting under professional supervision. Science now confirms what sages always knew. Time itself is medicine. By aligning with the natural rhythms of emptiness and fullness, you can awaken healing powers dormant in your body since the dawn of humanity. Chapter 10, The Cellular Workshop, Autophagy, and the Nobel of Osumi. What if I told you that your body possesses a system so sophisticated it can dismantle and recycle its own damaged parts, turning them into energy and building blocks for new cells? For decades, scientists believed that cells simply accumulated waste until they died. But in a quiet laboratory in Tokyo, a Japanese biologist was about to reveal the most revolutionary secret of cellular renewal. In the 1980s, Yoshinori Osumi observed yeast under his microscope. Inside the cells, he noticed small vacuoles devouring their own parts during periods of nutrient scarcity. Many colleagues dismissed this as insignificant, but Osumi suspected it was something far greater. For years, he worked almost alone, meticulously documenting how cells triggered this self-consuming process under stress. What seemed like self-destruction was, in truth, self-renewal. Cells were not dying, they were rebirthing themselves from within. Damaged proteins were dismantled, defective structures recycled, and even invading pathogens could be trapped and destroyed. Osumi named the process autophagy, literally self-eating. Far from being minor, it turned out to be one of the most essential mechanisms of life itself. When fasting, cells enter survival mode. Deprived of external nutrients, they turn inward, identifying damaged parts, breaking them down, and reusing their components to maintain vitality. It is like discovering every room in your house has a secret workshop that can dismantle old furniture and rebuild new pieces from the same material. Science now shows that autophagy is the foundation of longevity. When it weakens with age, cells accumulate toxic proteins and dysfunctional organelles. This buildup is linked to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. The key lies in reactivating this ancient process. Researchers found that periods of fasting can restore autophagy even in aging cells. Fasting, in effect, reopens repair workshops that have been closed for decades. The most effective method is fasting for 24 hours once or twice a week. During this time, only pure water is consumed. Freed from digestion, the body directs all energy toward internal renewal. Practitioners describe a striking clarity of mind, lightness in the body, and a sense of purification as millions of cells simultaneously shed decades of toxic accumulation. But as with any powerful medicine, caution is essential. People with a history of eating disorders, chronic medical conditions, or those taking certain medications should not attempt prolonged fasting without professional guidance. The body needs time and wisdom to safely reactivate these deep mechanisms. In 2016, Yoshinori Osumi was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discoveries. His work confirmed what sages had always intuited: inside the apparent deprivation of fasting lies the true abundance of regeneration. Autophagy emerged as the scientific bridge between ancient wisdom and modern medicine, proving that the human body carries within it healing powers far greater than science once imagined. The secret workshop of cellular renewal was always there, waiting for fasting to give the signal to begin its work. Chapter 11. The Pulse of the Light Heart, Cardiovascular Renewal Through Fasting. There is a place in Northern California where hearts learn to beat without the weight of accumulated time. Among the ancient redwoods, a clinic has turned fasting into the most powerful medicine against the #1 killer in the Western world, cardiovascular disease. The medical archives of the True North Health Center contain stories that defy conventional medicine. Patients arrived with arteries blocked at 90%, blood pressure at near-lethal levels, hearts enlarged by years of overwork. Weeks later, many left with numbers their cardiologists called miraculous. What transformed them was not a new drug nor surgery, but a return to something our ancestors instinctively knew. When the body stops digesting, it begins to repair. Dr. Alan Goldhammer, founder of True North, observed for decades what others ignored. Patients who fasted under medical supervision not only lost weight, but rejuvenated at a cardiovascular level. Arteries cleared, blood pressure normalized, and hearts regained the rhythm of youth. Science has now explained what was once mystery. During prolonged fasting, the body activates what researchers call cardiovascular autophagy. Heart cells literally consume damaged proteins, calcium deposits, and atherosclerotic plaques that had narrowed blood flow for years. The heart remembers its dormant ability to heal. At True North, supervised fasts last from 10 to 40 days depending on each patient's condition. During this time, excess sodium is eliminated, arteries regain elasticity, insulin sensitivity returns, and the nervous system resets. The sympathetic system, constantly triggered by food and stress, quiets down, allowing the heart to find its natural deep rhythm. Documented cases read like science fiction. Blood pressure dropping from 180/12 120/80 in 2 weeks. Arteries once blocked flowing normally. Enlarged heart shrinking back to healthy size, beating with youthful strength. And unlike miracles of legend, these results are backed by electrocardiograms, echocardiograms, and angiograms that cannot lie. But the transformation is not only physical. Patients describe a sensation they call the light heart. After years of pressure, fatigue, and breathlessness, they experience an almost forgotten vitality, freedom in the chest, clarity in the mind, and emotional release. The technique can begin safely with cardiac intermittent fasting protocols, such as 18 hours of fasting followed by a 6-hour eating window. During fasting hours, the body shifts from burning glucose to burning ketones, a cleaner fuel that reduces arterial inflammation and improves vascular function within weeks. For deeper healing, supervised 2-day fasts per week have shown remarkable effects, lowering blood pressure naturally, reducing strain on the heart, and activating intense cellular repair. But fasting is not for every heart. Those with severe arrhythmias, advanced heart failure, or recent heart attacks should not attempt prolonged fasting. Medical monitoring is essential, especially for patients on antihypertensives or anticoagulants. True North has proven a truth long forgotten. The heart is not condemned to inevitable decline. Given the right conditions, it can regenerate and recover decades of lost youth. The most moving testimonies are from patients once preparing for invasive surgery who walked out with hearts that no longer needed it. To men and women resigned to a life limited by disease discovered their hearts could renew themselves, something few doctors had told them, not out of secrecy, but because medicine had forgotten to look at the power of controlled emptiness. Fasting, under medical supervision, cleanses not only the arteries but the very rhythm of life. Among the redwoods, human hearts are rediscovering the most guarded secret of longevity, that cardiovascular youth is not found in pills or procedures, but in the ancient wisdom of allowing the body to heal itself. Chapter 12. The Seal of the Luminous Void. What do an ancient Greek temple, a Tokyo laboratory studying autophagy, and a Tibetan monastery hidden in the Himalayas have in common? All guard the same secret, expressed in different languages, but pointing to a universal truth that has accompanied humanity since its first conscious steps, the transformative power of the sacred void. We have traveled together across centuries. following the trail of a forbidden medicine that was never meant to be hidden. From the sacred oath of Hippocrates to the most advanced clinical protocols of today, each revelation is a thread in the same golden tapestry. Fasting is the bridge between body and spirit, between disease and healing, between aging time and renewing time. The synthesis is clear. The Ayurvedic sages who spoke of Agni, the digestive fire, were describing the same process that Yoshinori Ohsumi documented at the cellular level when he won the Nobel Prize for discovering autophagy. The Taoist masters who practiced Bigu, feeding on cosmic energy, reached the same states of clarity described by patients at Buchinger clinics in Germany. The biblical prophets who fasted for 40 days accessed the same mental brilliance that neuroscience now measures during prolonged fasting. This convergence is no coincidence. It is confirmation that the human body was designed to function in cycles of abundance and scarcity, fullness and emptiness, construction and regeneration. Modern civilization, with its constant food supply, has broken this ancient rhythm, and the consequences are written in today's epidemics of diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. But now you hold something more powerful than any medicine, the knowledge of how to awaken the repair systems already inside you. Each technique we have explored, from the simplest intermittent fast to the most advanced clinical protocols, is a key to unlock capacities once thought lost. The seal of the luminous void is activated when you realize that fasting is not deprivation but liberation, not punishment for the body but a gift to the soul, not denial of life but its most complete affirmation. When you fast consciously, you connect to a lineage stretching from the first humans who survived scarcity to the scientists now reversing cellular aging. You practice the same wisdom that guided Hippocrates, Avicenna, the Vedic sages, Taoist masters, Jesus and the prophets, Buchinger, Ohsumi, Longo and Goldhammer. All of them passed down fragments of the same luminous truth that healing, renewal, and transcendence reside within. To practice fasting is to honor this lineage. To approach it with wisdom, responsibility, and reverence is to activate the body's deepest pharmacy and the soul's brightest light. Fasting is not a forgotten tradition, it is the future of human health. The luminous void is not emptiness, it is fullness revealed. In every cycle of emptiness and fullness, fasting and feeding, symbolic death and real rebirth, lies the chance to reclaim the most powerful medicine humanity has ever known, the wisdom of letting the body remember how to heal itself.